the web has a huge problem we need to fix.
There's a hidden goal driving the direction of all of the technology we make. And that goal is the race for our attention.
Big tech has transformed the information superhighway into a super spreader of harmful content, invasive surveillance practices, and addictive and damaging design features.
They want us to believe this is the only way the digital future could be. That is a lie that we must resist.
Fixing this problem will be anything but easy. The two major solutions being worked on will require huge changes to how the web currently works, and there's no guarantee they won't make things worse. So what are these two solutions? To answer this question, we first have to understand what exactly is the problem with the web, and how the history of the web has led us here.
In the beginning, the internet was a military technology that was designed for secure communication in the event of a nuclear strike. Then it became a scientific technology for communication between researchers at universities.
The internet wasn't originally intended for public use, but when it became accessible to the public, it quickly expanded far beyond what anyone had imagined. The DIY, decentralized nature of early websites felt underground. Initially, only a specialized group with programming skills could create them.
When we talk about sort of the Web 1.0, where people were initially connecting through dial-up modems to sites that people created themselves. They were decentralized. You were connecting to someone's system, someone's server at a university or in a garage.
All right, so this is our garage. There's Larry, CEO of Google. Hi.
But soon people invented services like WordPress, Tumblr, and YouTube to allow anyone to post content without programming knowledge. Social media sites like Friendster, MySpace, and Facebook simplified sharing and connecting with others, and Google Search organized everything. This shift marked the emergence of Web 2.0, transforming the internet's landscape and making it more convenient to use. But there was something else that changed too.
In the early days of the World Wide Web, there was actually a rule against doing anything commercial on the internet, not just the web, but on the internet in general. There was this transition where the web came along, commercial activity was legalized.
One of the things that the early internet was not good at was figuring out a way to link the open, free flow of information and intellectual property to a business model. And the people who were able to put a business model around that, unfortunately, were the people who invented internet advertising.
And then we got this Web 2.0, a gold rush to commercialize the internet, to exchange a creative and cooperative space for a commercial and competitive space, one that was centralized around silos run by giant corporations that gave the appearance of ownership without the fact of ownership.
Web 2.0 made it easy for the average person to participate online. You no longer needed to build your own website just to post a picture of your cat or share a soup recipe. But this newfound convenience came at a cost. The web started becoming less and less decentralized. Instead of 100 websites run by 100 different people, millions of people started using websites owned by just a few companies. Not only did this give these companies a lot of control, it gave them access to what turned out to be the web's most precious resource, our data.
And this is, you go to Facebook, you're like, visit my Facebook page. But it's not your Facebook page. It's Facebook's Facebook page that they let you change. And then they extract value from it. They extract activity records from you and your life and your interactions with other people. And then they use that however they want because they own it, not you.
The result was a big data race between the big platforms, with the winner is the one that controlled the most data and the loser is everybody else. So all this meant that our data was stuck in systems that we as citizens or as consumers couldn't control. That's how we ended up with an online economy that used data to exploit people instead of benefiting them.
While giving control and data to a few big tech companies so we can have free access to all the amazing services of the web may seem like a fair trade, there's a huge hidden risk to this bargain. Because the race to collect and monetize our data is actually the root cause of the web's greatest problem: surveillance capitalism.
So what is surveillance capitalism? So it has long been understood that capitalism evolves by taking things that live outside the marketplace and bringing them into the market so that they can be sold and bought. For example, nature was dragged into the marketplace and reborn as real estate. Surveillance capitalism has claimed something from outside the market and brought it into the market to sell and buy. Private human experience has been claimed for the marketplace to be sold and purchased as behavioral data.
Surveillance capitalism is a business model where companies make money by surveilling their users. It works like this. Take a company like Facebook. Facebook created a social media platform that people use to connect with friends and family, find news, and for entertainment. But Facebook doesn't make money by charging a fee to its users. Instead, they use their app to collect as much data as possible about the users. Then they feed that data into AIs that make predictions about what people will do. They then sell those predictions to the highest bidder, usually advertisers. The owners of Facebook, its investors, make a profit from the sale of those predictions. And this is a surveillance capitalism business model. This model is not unique to Facebook. You can replace Facebook with almost any product or service that has access to lots of user data, for instance, Google or TikTok, and you still get the same system.
We think we're searching Google. Google's actually searching us. We think that these companies have privacy policies. Those policies are actually surveillance policies.
We've got Web 2, where the largest publicly traded companies in technology are basically advertising companies. I mean, when we think of Google, we think search, but it's actually surveillance capitalism and advertising. When we think about Facebook, we think about our friends and family and social networks, but it's really a surveillance mechanism.
The problem with this surveillance business model is that they've created a dangerous capability: selling manipulation. And while selling manipulation is not necessarily new, it's not much different than selling ad space on a billboard. What is new is the scale and precision at which it can be done.
I want you to imagine a control room with a bunch of people, 100 people hunched over at desks with little dials. And that control room will shape the thoughts and feelings of 1 billion people. This might sound like science fiction, but this actually exists right now, today.
Ultimately, the surveillance capitalism business model has created the capability for mass manipulation. This mass manipulation ability can be used for things as simple as getting you to buy a new pair of shoes, or things that are more sinister, like trying to change how you vote. This is exactly what happened in the Cambridge Analytica scandal, where influencing voters through social media may have altered the outcome of elections, such as the 2016 US presidential election and the 2016 Brexit vote in the UK.
So it's the same business model, but one is about getting you to buy stuff, and the other one is about getting you to vote in a certain direction.
To vote in a certain way, to think in a certain way, to align yourself with certain groups, to read certain kinds of materials, and yes, ultimately, in order to add momentum to a political point of view, to the point of actually voting.
So who controls this power for mass manipulation? Well, the owners of the companies do. But because the companies are owned by the investors, whose main concern is profit, there's no reason this system of surveillance and manipulation should stop.
You can precisely target the people who are most susceptible. And because this is profitable, it's only going to get worse.
So is there a chance of building something different? A business model for the web that isn't built on surveillance and manipulation? Or will surveillance capitalism continue to dominate and expand?
And so does the technology fundamentally enable surveillance by default, or has that just been the only way to monetize in a world in which everyone wants free content?
Digital technology is perfectly easy to imagine without surveillance capitalism. Impossible to imagine surveillance capitalism without digital technology.
Overcoming Web 2.0's surveillance capitalism problem means changing the entire business model of the web. But with any change of this size, the solutions have to be drastic, capable of completely reinventing the web's landscape. However, there are two solutions that might fit the bill. Both of them are inventing new technology that could lead to better business models for the web. And one of them, called Web 3.0, is being pioneered by none other than the original inventor of the web himself, Sir Tim Berners-Lee.
Our approach to data is fundamentally broken. Data today doesn't benefit from the web's principles of open access, individual empowerment. But the good news is that the web itself is ready to be the solution to those problems.
Because Web 3.0 builds on top of what we already have. It extends the capabilities of the web, and it fills in some gaps.
The technology of Web 3.0, called Solid, will put people in control of their data, not corporations.
So the Web 3.0 with solid protocols is the next layer people are seeing as a huge improvement, a sort of mid-course correction, taking the web to where actually some of us have always wanted it to go in the first place.
You give everybody a little bit of cloud storage, their own personal cloud storage, call it a solid pod, they have complete control over that.
Just share data in your pod, you allow a person or an app access to that specific bit of data, but you can revoke that access at any time.
The main innovation behind Web 3.0 is to make data interoperable. In other words, putting data in a standard format that anyone can work with. For instance, when you shop online, you could visit Amazon, Walmart, etc. and allow them temporary access to your shopping history so they could give you personalized shopping recommendations. Similarly, you could visit YouTube, Netflix, or some other streaming service and give them temporary access to your viewing history so they can recommend videos for you. So while that gives you a picture of what the technology of Web 3.0 aims to do, how would it work financially? In Web 2.0, we pay for services with our data. But in Web 3.0, there's hope that this business model would shift to more subscription-based services.
So I think that, I'm not a Facebook user. I don't even know my kids are anymore. But I mean, you know, if I were, I'd pay them the $9 a month. But please don't take all my data and disabuse it, right? So give me the platform to operate on, and I'll give you fair compensation for it. And that notion of service delivery for fair compensation, that's a nice, balanced, benevolent relationship between a consumer and a service provider.
In Web 3.0, if companies make money through subscriptions, then this would better align the interests of the company with its users. Users would benefit by getting better products, and the company would profit by improving their products to get more paying users. This has the potential to solve the surveillance capitalism problem by eliminating the incentive to profit from surveillance and manipulation of users. This could also help reduce the problem of centralization, since smaller companies won't have to spend time and money collecting mountains of data to compete with large tech monopolies. Web 3.0 has the potential to solve the problem of surveillance capitalism by giving people control of their data. However, Web 3.0 is still in its infancy, and there's challenges it needs to solve. For instance, it's unclear whether subscription models will gain widespread adoption. Also, there's no guarantee that big tech companies would welcome a system that could threaten their power. So while Web 3.0 certainly has a lot of potential to fix the web, only time will tell if it'll be the revolution that's promised. The other solution aimed at fixing the current problems with the web is called Web 3. Not 3.0, not 3.0, just 3, period. But no period, you know what I mean. Web 3, this is a complicated concept. But in essence, while Web 3.0 wants to fix surveillance capitalism by giving people control over their data, Web 3 wants to fix surveillance capitalism by giving people control over the companies themselves.
What makes Web 3 different is the ability to own the actual network.
It's not owned by Facebook, it's owned by the group.
This is because Web 3 believes that the problem with Web 2 is that the users are not in control. As we discussed, when a company uses a surveillance capitalism business model, it exploits the users for investors' profit.
If you're a user of WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, it's basically like in the digital world, Facebook is the government. But it's not publicly elected officials. It's Zuckerberg and his corporate structure making a lot of decisions, largely for the benefit of corporate shareholders. And so the vast majority of users are losing out, or at least powerless.
Web 3 believes if the users control the company democratically, they will vote to build it in their best interest. But what would that even look like? Basically, companies like Facebook and Google would be replaced with new decentralized companies that are democratically controlled by their users instead of controlled by a single entity. And in theory, since the users control the platform, they would never vote to allow someone else to use their data to manipulate and profit off of them. But how can users distributed all around the globe actually own and control a company like this? How would this work logistically, financially, and technologically? Honestly, how this will work in terms of where the funding comes from and whether users will be able to manage the platform is what people in Web 3 are currently debating. So there's a lot to be figured out. But one thing those in Web 3 can agree on is the technology that will underpin Web 3, blockchain. Blockchain's first use case was in the form of cryptocurrencies. These were the first examples of this type of shared control over a digital platform. This is maybe why you heard about them so much. It wasn't just the gambling opportunity, although there was definitely a lot of gambling. I did not really participate.
Did you really not participate in any gambling?
I don't believe in gambling. It was also because this new, radically different management system was being tested.
So when institutional technologies change, we get fundamental shifts in the types of economies we can build on that. And the cryptocurrencies were just the first sort of wedge into that. They were the first component of that.
But despite the success of many cryptocurrencies, blockchains came with a flaw that could strangle Web3 in its cradle. The way blockchain currently works is that all user data is entirely public. This was because the only way a blockchain could be decentralized was by making the data public. In other words, in order for anyone to be able to use the blockchain data had to be available to everyone.
Putting something on the blockchain, first of all, the way the blockchain works is the moment you put it on the blockchain, it has to go, the same data has to be put on every single node on the blockchain. So your medical data has now been put on every node. What's wrong with this picture? It's completely public. So everything you do on the blockchain is public.
So Web3, in theory, is supposed to be a decentralization. I would think of pursuing that original spirit of the internet, but trying to abstract the complexity that came from having to try to homestead on the internet, where you don't necessarily have to know how to run your own server. But how do we do that? How do we reestablish ownership when you don't even, touch the server? You don't know where the server is located. But right now, Web3 doesn't really solve a lot of the privacy problems that I see, largely because everything is still tied to hard identifiers that are known, they're constant.
If you've never used a cryptocurrency or a Web3 app, this might not make perfect sense to you. And in reality, even the people who have usually don't realize that their data is getting publicly stored on these networks. But ultimately, what all this means is that while it's good that Web3 is trying to put users in control, the technology underlying it all, blockchain, exposes all user data by default. So really nothing is stopping someone from extracting the data and again, selling the ability to target and manipulate people in some new form of surveillance capitalism. Regardless of whether it's Web3 or Web 3.0, this highlights something everyone trying to solve the problems of Web 2.0 needs to consider: privacy. Because privacy is not about hiding, it's about being in control of what you share. And since both Web 3 and Web 3.0 aim to give more control back to individuals, neither will succeed without privacy. So if Web3 is going to fully solve the problem of surveillance capitalism, it'll need to figure out how to add privacy to blockchains.
The most advanced technology we currently have available to make cryptocurrencies private are zero-knowledge proofs.
Zero-knowledge proofs were first pioneered by the cryptocurrency Zcash. And this is the biggest reason why we started this channel. By proving that strong privacy can be added to blockchains, Zcash represents a solution to the web's biggest problem.
Zcash is the leading cryptocurrency that employs zero-knowledge proofs. And when it launched in late 2016, Zcash was really one of the first available implementations of zero-knowledge proofs in the wild. And many other crypto networks in the space that use zero-knowledge systems rely on the innovations of Zcash.
Even though when we think of surveillance and advertising, we may think of social media or Google, the surveillance capitalism business model applies to our financial data as well. This is why Zcash is focused on building a private cryptocurrency.
One of the cool things about Zcash is having privacy by default at the economic layer, where you have these zero-knowledge proofs where you can prove that you did something, but you can't prove any of the information that was going into that. And I think that's a fundamental building block of the next world.
My hope for Zcash and other privacy currencies, Mynhier is a prominent competitor, is that eventually we'll abstract from this idea that when a company or a service or a platform or whatever receives a payment, that they even need to know who the payment is from or where it came from. Really, it should be more like just somebody, going into a gas station and handing over a token And as long as you know that token has value, you don't really care who it is. Like, they don't have to show ID to buy a bottle of water. And that's the way it should be.
However, both blockchain and zero-knowledge proofs are still relatively young technologies, and working on them requires a lot of expertise that not a lot of people possess yet. So while there are others now trying to use zero-knowledge proofs to add privacy to a variety of Web3 systems, there's a lot of work left to do. Both Web3 and Web 3.0 promise solutions to the current problems of the web. While they differ in their approach, they both strive to empower individuals and disrupt the current surveillance capitalism model. But as with any ambitious endeavor, they face significant challenges and risk creating unintended consequences. But despite the risks, hopefully those building Web3 and Web 3.0 can set us on the path to creating a better web. I hope you liked this video about the web's biggest problem and the solutions people are working on. Topics like this are vitally important, yet without public awareness and understanding of what's going on, these issues may not get fixed. That's why our channel, Zcash Media, is dedicated to educating viewers on privacy and the challenges it faces. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with others to keep the conversation going. And of course, subscribe to our channel for more.